links and resources and things to share with you. So I want to start out. I always try to find some interesting marketing ideas or, something that those of us in the trade show world can take and use as inspiration. And so this week I found Blue Bunny ice cream, which I don't know how big their range is. Here in the Midwest, they're really popular. But Blue Bunny ice cream is doing this summer what they call an ice screen truck. And so they did a 5-city tour. I think they're just about to wrap up, but they did Denver, Chicago, Cincinnati, St. Louis. So Chuck, if you're on here, and there's your link for that. Chuck, if you're here, I know you're in St. Louis, so maybe you had a chance to see them, but and then their last stop is Lamar's, Iowa, which is where they're based. I actually had the opportunity to tour their visitor center one time when I was there. But anyway, so they did this ice screen tour truck. And what it was a truck with a big giant video screen on the side. And then they were doing a contest where you could win it to have the truck come to your house, park in your driveway, and have 20 of your friends, and you watch a movie and you get the ice cream and stuff. So anyway, I thought that was a really clever idea. So, thinking about things like that, what can you do to be more engaging and more, innovative with your clients? Also, TSNN this week had a brief history of trade shows article. I don't know if you saw that. My husband, Alan, as always, is in the background. He's putting up these links. So as soon as that shows up, I will pop that up on screen. By the way, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, the links are already there. So if you just click to expand the description, you'll see the link. So don't click ahead. But that's our solution, so we can try to get the links in for everybody. But anyway, so it's kind of clever. It goes through, starting with way back in medieval times and the markets and moving forward. Hey, Marco. Marco's here from Italy. Welcome. Always good to have you here. And Al from New York. Welcome. A couple of our regulars. But anyway, so on the history of trade shows, so that is kind of a nice little profile, kind of gives you a snapshot over the years. I also did a series of posts for TSNN's 20th anniversary a couple of years ago of a number of I profiled different shows, including CES, IAPA, ProMat, and Modex. And so all of those articles are archived on my blog. So you can check that out. There is the link for that. I apologize. This was a last minute edition. So those of you on YouTube, it is not in there yet, but you can always just go to tradeshowinsights.com and search for history of trade shows and it should bring them up, or search for any of the specific show names I just mentioned, CES or IAPA, any of those, and it'll bring it up. And then you can just check the tag history of trade shows. But I will get that put in there later for the YouTube viewers. All right, then the next thing is GES has an infographic that they put together. They did a survey on returning to live events. So they surveyed, let's see, over 1,300 people in the months of June and July. They surveyed these people to get their feelings and feedback on what it was going to be, what their thoughts were on returning to shows and would they be willing and all that. So, the infographic really breaks it down really well. But basically 23% said proceed as normal. They had no concerns whatsoever. 24% need to be convinced that it's safe, and 12% said no way, and the rest kind of came out in the middle. But basically the outcome of the survey was that 65% demand some kind of mitigation and safety protocols and all that. So they really lay it all out really detailed in that infographic. So, go check that out. And then I don't think I included this link, but this is from Insurance Business Magazine. I believe this was, Al, I think this might have been one that you shared on LinkedIn, but I just wanted to share a quote that came out of that article. It was definitely geared more towards the liability side, more towards the event organizer side, but I thought this was really good because they said everyone who enters a venue has a responsibility to respect and comply with the rules. If you come into my house and act in a way that's inappropriate or offensive, I will ask you to leave. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be challenging as we go forward. I know we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about the Together Again Expo, but it's going to be interesting to see as we start to have shows. And as you all know, some stores and businesses are having trouble enforcing the mask rule and people's behavior and things like that. You've probably seen the viral videos. So it's going to be interesting to see if we have challenges with some of the attendees coming to some of these events that are, should we say less than compliant? So anyway, that's a kind of an interesting thought. But anyway, that was from that article. And then, I see Rama is here. And she says she does a shout out to Alan. So there you go. So Rama is from Lev Promotions in San Diego. So she's another one of our regulars. So welcome back. I think we've missed you the last couple of weeks. So good to have you back. Marco's here from Italy. He shared an article on exhibitions reopening in Italy on September 1st. And so Alan's going to put that link up. But obviously they have all kinds of safety procedures. But what else is interesting about this article is the incentives that they're using. They're doing incentives for foreign buyers. Foreign buyers and VIPs. They're doing some kind of incentives for them. And then they're also offering subsidies for Italian exhibitors. So it's just kind of an interesting, thought-provoking article on what might be some of the possibilities. And, Italy wasn't that far ahead of us as far as when they went into lockdown. So we're hoping this is a good indication. If they can start up and get going again in September, then, hopefully that means good things for us. So anyway, but on the subject of the ramifications and the effects here in this country, Forbes did an article. Let's see. I'll put that back up. I'm not sure if I clicked on that one yet or not. Forbes did an article on the economic effects, and they talked about not only the direct effects, but also, things like all the business sales that are made at events and all the taxes that come from events. So they really laid it all out. As far as, the full economic effect of not having trade shows. Yes, hopefully. Agreed, Marco. All right. So, and this one I know is a ridiculously long link, but here you go. So, like I said, now it's in the links on Facebook. It's already in the links on YouTube. So you should be able to click over to that. But anyway, so those are our resources for now. I also wanted to go, hey, Chuck. Hi. I don't know if you were on. I just mentioned you a few minutes ago, but Chuck is from St. Louis. Oh, yep. You missed the Blue Bunny truck. Okay. Yeah, I know. It's probably good because I would have depleted. They didn't come to Kansas City. They might have cruised through here on their way back to Iowa, but yeah. James, good to have you here. All right. So one other thing I want to do, and Alan, if you want to go ahead and put in that link for the time management, I just wanted to remind everybody, let me go take this off, that the Essential Time Management Strategies for Exhibit Marketers class that I created, it's in the Exhibit Marketers Academy, and right now through September 1st, it's pay what you like. So, it just starts at $5. So, if you really can only afford $5, that's just fine. And if you want to pay full price, you can pay that or anywhere in between. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. There is the link for that. So you can go check that out. But like I said, that ends the pay what you like in September 1st. So if you want to take advantage of it. Speaking of time management, if you want to use good time management, go grab that now while it's still on special. So all right, let me check here. I think I've made it through all of my links. So I am going to now bring on our special guest. And we have with us today, we have Junte Delane, and he is a digital marketing strategist. He is the founder of Digital Brand Institute, and he is the former senior brand manager for the University of Southern California. He also has worked with many brands, including Coca-Cola, Sony, Paramount Pictures, Verizon, and I could go on and on. And then one other thing he may not realize I know about him is he recently completed his pilot's license. So congratulations on that.
Thank you, Marlies. Thank you.
So it's great to have you here today. So
yeah, great to be here.
We're going to talk about future-proofing your brand. So tell us a little bit about what exactly do you mean by future-proofing your brand?
Yeah, well, essentially, we all know what the world is going through, right? The greatest pandemic in our lifetime. And it's, of course, affecting many, many, many businesses. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you are obviously affected. And so when I talk about future-proofing your digital brand, it's something that I do with plenty of my clients at Digital Delane, which is a full-service agency. And we essentially focus on building a brand that would outlast the pandemic. You know, providing my clients the tips, tricks, and insights on helping them to focus on adapting their business model, making any pivots, things like that. So future-proofing your brand is all about making sure that you're leveraging your internal assets, right? Obviously, you don't have a room to scale at this point. It's all about collaborating with other potential partners. And it's all about making sure that you do what you can to stay top of mind during this time, because even if your target audience isn't necessarily in the buying market now, you ultimately want to stay top of mind with them so that once this thing boils over, you would be top of mind and you can go ahead and reach out and engage with them during that time. So those are all a couple key points when focusing on how to future-proof your brand.
Well, and we're going to break down several of those points that you just addressed. And go ahead too, anybody, if you want to put a comment in a question in the comments, go ahead and do that. And we'll ask those as we go along as well. Okay. But so as B2B marketers, which is what most of our crowd here is, how do you do that whole, sensitivity and personal touch? How can you do that in an appropriate way in a situation like this?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, the old adage is people like to do business with people, and it's similar in the B2B industry as well, right? And so I think businesses want to do business with other businesses that are aligned with some of their ideologies, with some of their mission, values, and so on. And so if you're able to express the effort to understand what's going on in society that could be affecting the lives of, leadership in these organizations, or even trickling down to their specific audience base, I think it's going to build a better relationship in this environment. And so some tricks and tips that I would focus on as a B2B company is focusing on, again, establishing the core values of your organization, and also providing resources for other organizations, for other target organizations that you have in mind. Because ultimately, during this time, as a brand, as a business, you're looking for the best ways to position yourself in this current market. So by simply being an example or a resource, I think is one way that you're able to do it. And this could be simply reaching out from a business perspective to see, how they're faring in this industry, in the market, and also some tools that have helped you as a business. You can pretty much impart that information and give them that resource. And so those are one ways that you can still begin to build those relationships during this time.
Well, so a lot of that comes down to having personal one-on-one conversations with your clients at this point in time too. And I like how you said, reaching out person to person, not thinking of it as business to business so much. And I know that's what I've tried to pick up the phone and call some of my clients during this time as well. And
Hmm.
just, hey, how you doing? How, and especially if I know they have kids, or,
Right.
how you dealing with the kids being home and all that kind of thing. So you're right. It really, if you can reach them on that personal level, it really does take the relationship to a whole different level.
For sure. I mean, I have clients that are executives and they're also moonlighting as teachers, right? Because their children aren't in school. And so those are some challenges that I think they could be brought up, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of going against, the formal way of communicating, but ultimately, if your target audience or your client has children, that's probably something that they're dealing with, and it's difficult when understanding or when considering what they're going through at the time period, and then focusing on ways that you can essentially help, at least to build a bridge or to break that ice, because I think it's going to provide a better relationship foundation. So, I would highly recommend that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I know you're big on brand storytelling. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about how to use that tool at this point in time to really relate as well.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to, again, people knowing who you are, your mission, your values, and so on. And then telling your brand story as to why you're even in business and how your business is impacting the lives of your target audience. And if you haven't figured that out, then you certainly are going to need to start to focus, especially during this time,
Mm,
on establishing your brand story. And essentially, it's your why. Why are you in business? Why did you hire this particular employee? Why have you developed this initiative? Why have you established this strategic partnership? Why are you even at this event? Right, so on and so forth. So it's important to map out your brand, map out your why, so that you can convey that through your brand story.
well, so again, it goes back to humanizing and making it personable. So how do we deal with talking about how we stand out from the competition without going negative, like the
Mm.
politicians always do?
That's a whole nother story. So,
Yeah.
what I can say about that is, if you are a B2B business and you're looking at trying to stay top of mind, sort of, focus on, reaching out to your target audience, and so on. It's important to include your personality, because ultimately your personality is going to give you the reach that you need. And here's what I mean by that. And particularly on social media, we know that the algorithms reward personality. So if you have direct
Mm,
promotional or salesy communication on social media, you'll notice that your organic reach won't be as great. But
right.
if you are focused on more personality, then you're going to have more organic reach, and then you're going to have people reacting to that post with a bunch of personality, right? And what happens there is you start to get more organic reach because more people start to communicate. And once people start to communicate and engage, their network are informed, so on and so forth. So you actually have a significant benefit for being more personal if you are a very buttoned up B2B brand. If you sort of, relax on your brand voice a bit, start more conversations around different topics that have to do with your brand, you'll start to notice your organic reach. So providing that personality in terms of your brand voice to your target audience is going to be beneficial, because you're going to better reach your target audience.
So do you have some good, I know I'm kind of throwing this at you here,
No
but do
worries,
you
no worries.
have some examples of some, especially B2B, but like any companies that you can give just as examples of what's a good, like you said, showing your personality as a brand?
Yeah, I think a good case study would be the Wendy's roast. If you're not familiar with that, obviously Wendy's was, sort of a blah brand. It's very vanilla in a sense.
Yeah.
And they started to add more personality to their Twitter feed, and they started basically roasting everyone from their competitors to people who engage with their timeline, so on and so forth. And they actually had so much engagement that it brought in more traffic into the stores. People who didn't engage with Wendy's earlier on did so just for the entertainment value, and that
Yeah.
obviously kept Wendy's top of mind, which brought more people into the stores. And so they switched it up a little bit during the pandemic by going from roasting to toasting, which basically
Mm.
means that they flipped it and they said, okay, instead of roasting people, we're going to talk about the good things that people are doing in the community, highlighting those different things, and then rewarding them with free nuggets and stuff like that, right? So I think that's a great
Ah.
example of how you should leverage a brand voice. And if your brand voice didn't have any personality before, you can take some cues as long as it's aligned with your brand, from Wendy's and their roast, and apply it to yours. And I think the ultimate lesson here was Wendy's went from servitude to attitude, right? So normally when you think about social media, you'd automatically assume from a B2B perspective, overall, you'd automatically assume it's all about thought leadership or customer service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you go from focusing on customer service only to having a little bit of attitude, having some personality, you're going to notice more organic reach. And so that's important because nowadays we know that when on social profiles and accounts, people want to be entertained, right? So
Right.
they aren't necessarily engaging with a brand simply to get their brand information, right? They want to be entertained. So it's important that you go from that servitude to attitude, and not only use your social channels as a way of communicating customer service transactions, but focus on providing some type of value in terms of attitude, personality, and entertainment.
Well, and I love how you were talking about how Wendy switched to doing the toasting and praising people for what they were doing. I'm sure that got lots of attention because people are, everybody loves that kind of thing, and it probably got a lot more shares and likes as well. So,
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
so let's talk a little bit. You had mentioned earlier about leveraging your existing assets. So talk a little bit more about, because I think probably a lot of people, when you start, you may have seen I put Matt's comment up there
Mhm.
about he's going to start roasting people. So we should all look out, right? But if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh my goodness, now all of a sudden I got to create all this new stuff and figure out what my personality is. How could you take some existing assets and use those to your advantage?
Yeah. So if you're struggling, if you're, either stuck on that hamster wheel of creating content for content's sake, or you just don't have time to create content, my mantra is work smarter, right? And one of the
Mm.
ways that you're able to work smarter is by repurposing some of your existing content. So if you start off with a blog post or a video, let's say, for example, you take this live stream and we transcribe that live stream, we make that transcription into a blog post, we repurpose some of the quotables, some of the gym dropping, mic dropping moments, and create Instagram quote images, statistics, things like that,
Mm-hmm.
from this main piece of content, which is, of course, the live stream. So that's one way that you can focus on repurposing your content. The other way is to take a look at what content has worked for you in the past, meaning that what content has brought in the most leads, has gotten the most views, and so on. And when you think about and when you analyze that, you also want to focus on the content that's actually converting, right? So you may not necessarily need to
Mm.
look specifically at the vanity metrics of, oh, this blog post or this video had the most views, but it's more about which video, which blog post actually converted. Because what you can do
Makes
here is
sense.
once you understand what video is converted, you can then beef up that content, right, to draw more eyeballs and get more views on that content, right? So it all starts off with that pre-existing asset of the blog post, the video, the live stream, and so on. And then, of course, most of us are too busy to continuously create content, right?
Right.
So my focus here is I just simply batch content. Because consider, for all those who bake, right? You know that you would never ever bake one cookie at a time, right? You put all the cookies on a baking pan and then bake them all at once. You do the same thing for your content, right? And that's naturally going to help. So if you're planning to do videos, you may want to batch some of your video creation. You may want to batch some of your blog posts and articles that you're writing during a time when you have complete focus and ability to create content. So those are my few recommendations on how you can use your internal assets to create content and to stay top of mind during this time.
Well, and you talked about repurposing. It took me several months of doing virtual lunch before I finally woke up to, oh yeah, I should repurpose these on my podcast as well. So yeah, it is true. It's like you create it once and use it in multiple places, multiple times. So
exactly.
Well, you had also mentioned collaboration. And I think especially for the trade show and events industry right now, I think we're really looking to how can we all team up and support each other. So what are some of your suggestions as far as collaborating to create content and to get that message out there?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I think if you are in the trade show industry, you've leveraged trade shows in the past. Obviously, that's not the case anymore, right? So most of those events are either canceled or they're gone virtual. So when you think about that from a virtual standpoint, you're obviously able to do leverage more in the digital space than you may have in the physical space. So you would make sure that you have all of your lead generation funnels and so on and so forth together. And then you would also want to make sure that you are going above and beyond in terms of the sponsorship that you are booking, right? And so my rule of thumb is it should be 3 times whatever the investment is for the sponsorship. The activations outside of that should be threefold, right? And so that could be, creating Facebook ads as a part of your collaboration with that particular event. It could be activating some ambassadors, posting on social media, creating content around the event, so on and so forth. That would happen in the digital space. And then when it comes to just the general collaboration overall, obviously, some of our marketing budget is tight, right? We're tightening the belt.
Right.
One of the ways that you're able to collaborate during this time is by joining in with a partner that either provides an ancillary service or some type of strategic partner that you've worked with in the past, and then create co-branded campaigns. So these could be essentially Facebook ads that are co-branded, right? And just making sure that the final creative nicely showcases the way both brands are able to work together to help solve some type of challenge. Again, that's very important, right? This is not just, hey, this is a Facebook ad with 2 partners, but this is a Facebook ad, right, that has a collaboration that can help meet your target audience's challenge. Right. So that's very important. And of course, you're basically splitting the ad spend down in half, and you're able to collect some of the data from your strategic partner and vice versa. Right. So those are some ways that you're able to focus on collaborations during this time. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you're working with the right partner in the digital space. So you may have a partner that has a great brick and mortar brand. You may be more advanced in digital. So you want to basically align yourself with someone that's equal on that field in terms of you guys both having an advanced digital brand. That way, your co-branded campaign would be much, much more fruitful. So just consider those couple facts when looking at collaborating during this time.
Well, and that makes sense too, because otherwise, if you're not equally matched, then, if one of them is much more much more, what do I want to
Advanced, I guess.
say,
Yeah.
advanced, yeah,
Mhm.
advanced in the digital arena, then they would be carrying most of the weight.
Right.
So it makes sense that you find a company that's a good match that way. So, and note to everybody, if you're here at Virtual Lunch, this may be a good place to find some of those matches for your collaboration projects. So, well, if you have any last minute questions, go ahead and put those in the comments and we will ask Jonte. But any final thoughts from you? Something maybe that we forgot to address during this interview?
No, I think ultimately this was great. Hopefully I provided you guys with a ton of value. Feel free to reach out to me and my agency, digitaldelane.com, if you have any questions or if you're looking for ways in which that you can navigate through this time. We've helped plenty of partners, even in the B2B space. People who have or brands that have a great brick and mortar, but are looking to transition or create a go-to-market strategy, things like that. I certainly can be of assistance.
Sounds great. And we'll make
Mhm.
sure we get your web address in the show notes and the comments and everything as well. So
Great.
I don't see any last minute comments. So thank you so much, Junte,
Of
for
course.
taking time out to be here for Virtual Lunch today. And thanks to everybody who joined us. We will be back again next Tuesday. We're going to take off the day after Labor Day, but we will be here next Tuesday. So we will see you then. And everybody in the meantime, have a great week. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.